Okay, everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks very much for taking the time today to log on to our Lynx Lunch and Learn webinar. This is a series that we do every few months to educate stakeholders, partners, and hopefully give an opportunity to show the way the Lynx platform is being used in the field to help our clients. My name is Trevor Jones. I'm the CEO, and we're located here in Denver, Colorado. And before anybody asks, yes, it is snowing quite a bit outside. So again, hopefully you're tucked in with some lunch and ready to learn a little bit about Lynx today. So I'll talk a little bit about Lynx, introduce the folks that'll be on the call that will be presenting to you, and then we'll get started and we'll have lots of time for Q&A at the end. And I know we're rather excited to have a group of geologists and other folks that are quite knowledgeable about what happens in the field with mining. It's a little bit different. Oftentimes we talk to ESG experts, we talk to different folks. We're really excited to both have a geologist and a group of geologists on the call today. Lynx is a cloud-based software platform. We're really helping to optimize mining companies' data workflows on the ground. So I'm sure everybody on the call to some extent can probably agree that spreadsheets and even notebooks have been de rigueur in the mining industry for a long time. We're really here to change that and support miners at their site level data capture and data organization with our platform. We have a super exciting guest for you today. Caron from SPC Nickel Corp's here. I'm excited for him to relay about how he's using the platform to capture data in the field. We're really excited to hear about his experience and perhaps even more excited to hear your questions, both for the Lynx team and Chris. He can really provide some color around how geologists and also technicians in the field can use the tool, and we're very excited about that. We have Matt Carter, our CTO, Joe Murdy, our Vice President, and also George Ganbold on the call, who works on some of the standards out there for mining companies. Joe will provide a demo after we ask Chris a few questions here and put him on the spot for a minute. We'll dig into his experience so you can see how this technology can perhaps transform your workflow as well on the ground. So we'll do a quick Q&A with Chris. Joe will do a demo. And then we'll open it up for the wider group. And we promise to keep that demo pretty short so we can get to that Q&A. Want to go ahead and remind everybody that this webinar is being recorded. We'll send out a link afterwards, along with a case study we've done with SPC Nickel, so you can have that information to read as well as hear about some of the information Chris talks about today. So just before we begin, just want to express my thanks to everybody for taking the time to join us today. Our mission at Lynx really is to empower geologists and mining companies, with the latest data capture technology, and that's really what we work hard on all day here in Denver, is producing that software platform and that technology. So, without further ado, allow me to introduce Caron from SPC Nickel. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time. Just curious if you could tell the group just a little bit of background about yourself, how you became a geological technician, how long you've worked for SPC Nickel, and then maybe just some of the work you do in the field, which will be familiar to many on the call, but perhaps unfamiliar to some that don't do that work as well.
Sure. I've been in the mining industry for 30 odd years now. My first job out of university was in the Yukon at a gold mine. And I had a variety of responsibilities there. We were in exploration mode for a while, and then went into production. So I was lucky enough to get a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. Since then, I've worked, since I left the Yukon in 2000. I've been in Sudbury. I've worked for started working for Falconbridge as a geological technician. And since then, I've worked for a few other companies here in the Sudbury area, base metals exploration primarily, but a few other interesting projects as well. I've been with SPC Nickel since the company began, almost exactly 2 years ago, and that's so been great. It's a great company to be with, lots of opportunities for me to do different tasks and learn different things. And so my role here as a geological technician, or the role of geological technician, typically, at least in our area, is a person that supports the geologists through providing logistical help, lots of field work. So things like prospecting, mapping, geophysics. I used to do some claim staking, line cutting, that sort of thing. Geophysical surveys, soil surveys. A lot of the job involves processing drill core samples. So moving core boxes, sampling core, cutting core, like polish core sometimes, physical tests of core, perhaps specific gravity or electromagnetic test work, things like that. Uh, a lot of field work. Here at SPC, I'm lucky. It's a tight team. I get to do a lot of other interesting things. So I'm also the staff photographer and the drone pilot, and I do a lot of photogrammetry here, mechanic, carpenter, etc. I'm also the person that's looking after tracking our carbon emissions for the company, and also I'm looking at some other special projects, not the least of which is incorporating tracking ESG events into our daily activities, as that seems to be something that will be quite important as in time. So I think that's sort of the summary of the kind of stuff that I do.
Sorry,
Trevor, I think you're muted.
I think I muted myself like we all do occasionally on these calls. So we no shortage of task at the mine site, Chris. I mean, I think one interesting thing for us at Lynx is just to see the way those jobs of work have evolved, and maybe the way that ESG is starting to be tracked. So definitely want to talk a little bit about that in a while. How big is your team? You mentioned a tight team. How big are they?
Well, we're four at the moment. Our CEO and President Grant. There's two geologists and myself at the moment. But I'm pretty sure we're going to have to staff up in the near term here for one of our projects that's expanding. So
fantastic news, and congrats on that. And we'll want to hit on that in a little bit too, in terms of the expansion. So I guess how have geological technicians typically tracked data in the field? I mean, mining's obviously an ancient industry. It's gone through various iterations over time. What kind of data kind of supports your job and your mission, and then how has that traditionally been logged in the field?
Well, traditionally stuff is logged using a field book and a pencil or write in the rain pen, a GPS, a camera, that sort of thing. And then, as you mentioned earlier, when you get back to the office, then that has to be sometimes put into a spreadsheet or some other software so that it's captured digitally. But typically that's it. So now, though, I can use my mobile device to do those tasks. So I think that helps a lot. I could give you some examples, I suppose, if you'd like. We're at SPC, trying to be paperless. So there's quite a few things that we've done to that end, and Lynx is pretty crucial to that process.
That's fantastic information, and certainly that reduction in paper use around the office and all of those logs and field notes, significant in an ESG sense. I mean, I guess is that why you think SPC started using Lynx in the first place? Was that kind of because of challenges or gaps? Was it more of a move towards sustainability, or I guess was there a recognized kind of gap in data management processes? Were you guys innovators, or maybe fixing things along the way?
More going paperless is great, right? But also I think it was more that the data is now shareable among the team. So by making use of the various filters that you can apply to the recorded events, you can isolate data. Everybody on the team can see what data other people have collected, and that's a huge benefit for that. Not to mention, sort of streamlining a lot of processes. So, for example, I do a lot of drill site inspections almost daily when we're drilling. So that used to involve a paper form with multiple 3 copies, carbon copy form, and you fill that form out, and then you got to scan it and record that on a server or something in a file folder. Now, if when I do a drill inspection, I've made a fillable PDF inspection form. So right in the field, right on my mobile device, I'm able to complete the inspection, record all that information, upload that along with a GPS location and along with any other supporting photos, documents, etc., notes up to into a Lynx event and onto the cloud, and then that's there for anybody to see. And then all those inspections can be filtered out and viewed by month, week, whatever you like. That's a a good example of one of the things that we use it for. So maybe in more remote location, like we had a project called Muskox in Nunavut. So that was a prospecting mission, but one of the things that we wanted to do there was track the type, location, and habitat of any wildlife that we encountered on the way. And there's a few reasons for that, but not the least of which was, the local Hunter and Trappers Association was interested in that data. Since we're bombing around in a helicopter, you get to see a lot of stuff. So we were able to capture that data instantly on our mobile device, along with the GPS location. The subcategories in the wildlife category include, like I said, what you're doing, what type of wildlife it was, where they are, what they were doing, how many of them, that sort of thing. And it's really helpful for the team to capture carbon emissions. So we're tracking carbon emissions with a goal of eventually trying to be a net zero mining company. And so let's say, one of the things I got to track is gasoline in company vehicles. So when an employee fills up a pickup truck with gas, they go to their Lynx app on their phone, they punch in how many, they select the carbon emissions category, select a subcategory. So gas is a scope 1 emission. So that gets selected, and they just type in how many liters they bought. That gets converted into kilograms of carbon dioxide. And similarly, if we get an invoice from a fuel supplier for 4,000 liters of diesel that was delivered to a drill site, well, you can put 4,000 liters of diesel in there. That gets converted. Then I can easily, at the end of the month, filter that month out for scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And I can put that into my month-end report. There's a handy widget on the Lynx dashboard that gives me a snapshot of our carbon emissions, as well as other categories and statistics that we're collecting data on, health and safety, things like that. So those are great. Health and safety is fantastic. So another category that's another category we track, and that's subdivided into lost time injuries, critical injuries, but also things like precautionary actions. So if we do a safety meeting, the time, date, location, and description of that safety meeting are going to get recorded into the Lynx platform as well. I know that one other category we use is consultations. So it could be a government consultation, or with regulators, or community consultation, perhaps, or a consultation with an investor. So our CEO will use that function to track his conversations with investors, and as we gear up, for example, for this new project, there'll be an awful lot of permitting involved. So every time somebody has an interaction with a regulator, then that's going to be tracked there, rather than on people's individual calendars and spreadsheets and that sort of thing. So that information won't be lost. and it'll be easy to filter out and find in the future. So that's a big advantage. Other uses in the field, environmental conditions as well. You know, if there's, let's say, some sort of a hazard, a washout on a road, I can take a location, take a picture, upload that to Lynx, write a description. I can flag it as an urgent event, let's say, so that the rest of the team, when they see that on their dashboard, they can go and check it out and see what I'm talking about, or any kind of other environmental issues, including site cleanup or regreening. Let's say we plant some trees or spread some seeds over a disturbed area where we've been drilling or something like that, then that can be recorded along with location data and other things like that. And then it's, as I say, it's makes it very easy to track that data and to make it useful. You know.
I gotta say, Chris, just as the CEO at Lynx, what you're saying is really music to my ears. It sounds like you've been able to log both a great volume of data, but also just impressed both by the breadth of job responsibilities and tasks of work of a geological technician on the ground. I mean, just from everything you've told me, from drone pilot to caribou sightings, I mean, the range is quite impressive. I also like to just wonder or just ask if, as you aggregate all of this data. And again, great to hear that it's perhaps making it easier for you on the ground. Are other folks in the organization, perhaps Grant or anybody else, able to use what you're tracking in an effective way? So as you kind of aggregate or assimilate that data, are other folks keeping an eye on it, maybe in terms of urgency or anything else like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone uses Lynx
Great.
consistently. So, you know, once you've got a Lynx window open on your desktop or laptop, you can see what other team members have recorded as an event. And certainly at month end, it's easy. So at month end, we got to make a report for the board of directors. So I can take maybe a snip or a screenshot of the health and safety stats widget off the Lynx dashboard, or the carbon emissions stats or widget off of the Lynx dashboard, and just plug that into a monthly report. So those sorts of tasks are simplified. We are also tracking, employee hours, contractor hours, and things like that. So that those hours can be assigned to a particular asset. So at the end of the month, you want to track how much of people's time has been spent on project A versus project B. It's very easy to use that data as well. Things like that. So yeah, everyone on the team is using it consistently.
Fantastic to hear that, some of that data organization's working at multiple levels for you guys. I think that's also music to our ears, to use a phrase. So to you and the whole team, I mean, congrats on the new arrangement with Vale. I'll let you explain in your words, but I think that's public information right now. We can talk about that, and that's probably going to greatly at least increase the geographic area where you're operating in your jurisdiction. But would love, Chris, from your own words, just kind of to describe what that's going to be all about.
Oh, well, we recently completed a cooperation agreement with Vale here in Sudbury, where we're going to remove the boundary between two properties, upon which lies a near surface nickel open pit. So we're continuing our resource drilling there, or definition drilling there now. And over the next 4 years, we'll be conducting economic PEA, economic study, and environmental assessment. There'll be a boatload of regulators and various agencies that we'll need to have consultations with over the next 4 years to get from the point of defining this resource where we are now to the point where we're actually a mine that's in production. So the scope of this project is just ballooned quite a bit, and so more than ever now, it's going to be important that there'll be a large amount of data coming in. It's more important now than ever that we track all of that and and have it organized and available to everyone on the team. So we think that by utilizing Lynx and the cloud storage facility of that, as well as the ability to add events to this from everyone's mobile phone or tablet, which is what we use for everything now. That's going to help us a lot to bring this project forward.
That's fantastic news. I think we definitely don't envy mining companies and the number of probably in standards bodies and entities they'll have to kind of engage with, or regulatory bodies, both nationally and soon to be internationally. So looking forward to being partners as we can shape that data and help you guys use that to achieve your goals with that new area. I looked at the map; looks really fantastic. So congrats again. I would say last question, Chris, and we'll let Joe just to show the audience a quick sample of the demo before we get into Q&A with you, because I'm sure there's some good questions. But any advice for, I mean, again, there's just such a range of jobs of work on the ground that geological technicians have to take care of. I mean, seriously, I think I wrote down 20 different things you do at least at the job site here just while we were sitting here. Is there any advice to other geological techs or just anybody else out there with this whole ESG thing? It gets complicated with the vocabulary. What's the advice, or what would you say to them if they just want to capture data, a little bit better, or any other tips and tricks that might make their life easier? Because I'm just listening to this, it sounds quite rigorous and complex what you guys have to do in the field.
Oh, I would say that collecting data is important, of course. It's great, but if you can't track it, if you lose the data, if the data is not organized, then you've wasted your time, right? It's not useful to anybody. So in a piece of machinery like this, as you say, it's pretty complex. There's a lot going on. Multiple people are involved. The Lynx platform is allowing everybody to collaborate a lot better and make this data more valuable and useful to everybody. I would say that I've found it difficult in the past to try and keep my notes organized, to keep up to date, to digitize a field book, things like that. They're onerous jobs, and there's no need for that. You can make your life a lot easier. We all have a phone in our pocket, and it's fast. I really like using it, and paperless is great, as well, because you don't have to carry around a binder with a bunch of forms in it and whatnot, and it's raining out or cold or snowy out, you can take your device out of your pocket and get that data, or do that safety audit, or record that interaction that you had, or that event in the field that that's important, that environmental event, or what have you. So it's just a great step forward in the evolution of gathering data and being able to use it.
Absolute music to our ears, Chris. Again, we're just looking forward to being, partners in the future with SPC, and understanding how to take advantage of the great and breadth of data that you're capturing in the field too. So thanks so much for telling us about your background, how geotechs can use digital technology maybe a little bit better at the mine site, and then also the notes on SPC. Just congrats again to the recent success.
Thanks. That's the West Graham property, by the way, if anyone is interested, here in Sudbury, the battery metals property, nickel and copper.
I know we'll have it on the tips of our tongues at PDAC and Mines and Money next week in Miami. But with that, we will go to Joe, if he doesn't mind sharing his screen. I may need to stop sharing mine. And we'll take just a quick peek at the Lynx platform, just to touch on some of the features and benefits to our clients that Chris mentioned. Again, just an easy way to go ahead and start capturing data in a much more robust manner at the mine site. So with that, our Vice President of Operations, Joe Murdy, has a rich background coming from Newmont before he came to Lynx. So we always appreciate his vocabulary and perspective around what we're working on. So with no further ado, Joe, I will mute both my mic and camera and let you take it away for the next 5 or 10.
All right, great. First off, can everyone hear me? Most important. And thank you for the intro, and Chris, thank you especially for coming out today. Hearing, how you guys are actually employing this in the field means a lot to us, especially from the development side. I feel that pain before Newmont. I spent 8 years doing reconnaissance and special operations work in the U.S. military. So those right in the rain hens and really cold weather, I feel your pain with doing that, and having to digitize that immediately for any sort of information reporting was definitely difficult there. So I can't imagine with the austerity of the event and location of some of these, how that works. But moving over to the platform, some of the stuff Chris talked about, the data you're seeing on the platform today is going to be different than SPCs. That's by design. We run a demo environment for these, but also the bigger part of this is it's customizable to our customers. We really believe that the customers who determines what they need to capture, especially given the breadth of size that we deal with. Your explorers and juniors are going to be very different than maybe mid-tier and majors. So the data that's being looked at and what's collaborated on is going to change. But looking at the dashboard from a high level, you kind of get to see some of the different things you can start to capture in this. We have everything, the health and safety data that was discussed by Chris with Triffer. Again, how that's recorded, we work with each customer to make sure that the forms that they fill out and how it's calculated are going to be best representative of what they want to see. You can do aggregation. So we have a waste rock example here. You can organize by urgency, so on and so forth. The idea here is really to, again, empower our users to see the data as they want to see it. On the left-hand side is the navigation for this platform. So, you move from a dash app feed talked about briefly, and of course, waiting for the internet to load. But what you can see here, our environment has 2 assets. Why you're seeing some things in Denver, I'll demonstrate in a minute. But the idea is that you can click on either asset and see what events are going on as they're being recorded. You can get the details of those events right here, or there's several other views you can kind of look at. Regions are kind of hierarchical organization here. This changes company to company. If you're at a big global, you can do it regionally based on maybe LATAM, APAC, things like that. Or if you're working in maybe a smaller state, you may want to organize that however you want. We have our asset view here, where we capture our assets within this. And we, again, allow this to be organized however the user wants to. You can click in and get a much more detailed view of your assets. You're going to have a timeline of events by urgency, events by category, the 2 widgets here. Those can be changed based on needs. You're going to have a much more zoomed in map. We have a third party or a layer thrown on this also for indigenous areas. As you can see here, this is something that if a company has some sort of geographical mapping, they can have that put on there. We also have this monitoring feature that's coming out. So you're going to be able to look at water sampling, air sampling, and see if it's within compliance. Again, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to dive into depth here. The biggest thing here, we have the events reporting, filtering and columns. So as Chris was talking, being able to actually see who's been recording, who's been doing what. You can click on any event. You're going to see who's created it, who last modified it. You can go in, see much more detail. You have compliance standards here for everything. The other thing he kind of talked about, that greenhouse gas emissions, say we want to see that. Let me clear this filter out. It's really easy to create that event. Say we have a Western Canadian mine here, and we're going to get specific around greenhouse gas emissions. As you see these, I know you can't see the drop downs. It's a Teams issue, but you'll see these compliance standards start to populate. We can set those ahead of time, either to a category or a subcategory. These are also totally customizable. as you see, we can put in custom company standards, procedures. Maybe there's something regional or district based that's much more robust than what you're used to having to track. Open, closed, just brief descriptions. Again, this is a custom field that I've put in just for my own essay when I'm going through these things. We have an environmental issue here. And then as he said, maybe we do a road trip. I know it's 100 kilometers. I'm just going to do this really quick. We have this cool contacts feature. Maybe you took that with someone, the ability to put them in there. Any attachments, photos, videos to it. You can see this is mapped to the area. But as Chris kind of pointed out, maybe you're somewhere away from the mine. You can also hit use current location if you're on a phone. You're going to get a rough idea of where I live. But, this will move it to where you're at, geotagging it for you. You add the event. And since this was a very specific example here, you get to see this greenhouse gas emissions. You come over here, and one of the columns that we have open right now is how many kilograms of CO2 is being thrown off by that particular event. Really useful for tracking those scope emissions. Again, that's one feature within several within the platform. We're working on being able to generate reports with each one of our clients. So to meet that need, the biggest thing to, this audit log, as you can see, when we go in, we create something. This is all going to be tracked. This is for that data assurance that we're sure is coming to make sure this is in compliance with any sort of audit that's coming. You also have the ability to partition within the platform itself. So if there's data that maybe you want your CEO, lead geologist to see, but not maybe your HR person if they're utilizing this at all, you have the ability to control what people see to add an extra layer of security to the platform. I know it's a really brief overview. I wanted to touch on some of the stuff that Chris said, the offline functionality and everything. It's limited to just data capture at this point, but really trying to, again, think of our customers and enable the platform to be used in these austere environments where the internet is not necessarily readily available, but you might have your cell phone on you. So any questions, let us know. Otherwise, happy to hand it back to you, to Trevor and Chris for Q&A.
Thanks, Joe. And yeah, I think we all have a cell phone in a pocket is our new tagline. I think that was Chris's quote from earlier. So we'll probably steal that from you, Chris, as our new marketing. But no, we'll wrap it up here shortly. Wanted to open up for Q&A. If anybody has any questions for either the Lynx team, we also happen to have one of our research fellows on and our CTO as well. So we have the kind of a few different angles of attack we can take for different questions from the group. And then also, would love it if anybody has any specific questions for Chris as well, and then we'll wrap it up. So you can click on Q&A at the top. There's a button that says Q&A. The chat is disabled, which is probably what we're most used to. So again, there's a button at the top that says Q&A. And if nobody has any questions, then we'll ask Chris a few more just while we have his time today. But we'll wait 30 or 45 seconds for folks to navigate that Q&A button at the top. Any questions at this juncture? Okay, I will go ahead and throw Chris one that may be out of his purview. Hopefully he doesn't get mad at me later. But Chris, we have all these standards and it's alphabet soup out there. It's going to be crazy as things kind of come down the pike from Europe. And by crazy, I mean that the volume and breadth of standards is quite large. I know this is not the first thing you might think about every day over your cup of coffee in the morning as a geotech, but kind of where do you see this pressure coming down the pike for companies to start reporting more? Is that part? I think earlier you may have alluded to that being part of the reason why SPC is a little more interested in capturing data in a robust way. Can you maybe at least talk about what's going on in Ontario or Canada? Just what will you guys have to report on?
Well, as you know, there's no reporting requirements that are in stone at the moment, but many investment groups now are incorporating ESG scores into their investment decision-making process. There's a number of organizations and businesses out there that have different ways of calculating a quote unquote ESG score. It's a bit like the Wild West right now, but I think that in our case, we're trying to be well positioned and well prepared to be able to and have all that data on hand so that when the time comes, we'll be ready to to be able to answer people's questions and to be able to provide all the data we need to complete an ESG report. And they're quite involved. We've looked at several templates, and there really is a ton of data that the auditors are looking for. Not the least of which is carbon emissions. So there's quite a few areas there where a platform like Lynx is a big advantage. If that data is not organized, it's going to be much more difficult to be able to work with these ESG groups. So
Yeah, that's
it's important, I
fantastic.
think, to a lot of our investors, and may become more so important in the near future.
Yeah, certainly something we're tracking as well, and thanks for that. We have another question here that's come through, and please, everybody, keep them coming. The question is, does the program work in environments with no cell reception or internet? Is there an offline mode? And the simple answer is yes, there's absolutely an offline mode. One thing we like to talk about at Lynx is the fact that the platform has been deployed all the way from where Chris and his team works, very far north in Nunavut, Canada, all the way to just a few weeks ago, we were helping a customer in southwestern Ethiopia, right? So we've designed this platform to really address, like Joe said, austere environments, and there absolutely is a way to go ahead and get events in the platform while offline. So in the absence of any other questions, I think this has been really, really great. Again, want to thank Chris for illustrating the breadth and depth of data that he's able to go ahead and capture with the Lynx platform. Certainly music to our team's ears to try to understand exactly how our partners are using this in the field and then be able to make changes and improve upon that functionality. So thanks, Chris. Thanks so much. Thank you, all the attendees, for taking your time today. I think at some point we do want to try to create an engaged community of users where we can bounce ideas off of each other. We can try to understand as a group where this world of ESG data capture is headed. And so looking forward to engaging with some of you after the fact. Please reach out to us with any questions. We will be at PDAC, Mines and Money in both London and Miami, and a few other conferences coming up. So please do reach out, and perhaps we can meet in those markets if you or your team will be there. And we will send out a detailed case study just of how SPC and Lynx have been working together. For those that like to consume information in a written versus verbal way, that can be a good way to check out exactly what we're up to as well. So thanks again for joining us today. Thanks to our team here at Lynx. Thanks, Chris, very much, and to our attendees. Looking forward to going on the journey of ESG and other types of data capture at the mine site together with you. And just again, couldn't be more appreciative of your time. Thanks.